Hello, and welcome to your first experience of the flipped classroom. Today, we will be looking at experimental designs as part of a unit on research methods. You should treat this lecture like a classroom, taking notes where appropriate, and when you have questions, write them down. Tomorrow in class, we will have time to discuss any questions you have. And then we will be doing an analysis task based on the material that you have used and learnt in this lecture today. To begin, you must open your page where you have written your notes on research methods. Underneath, start a new heading, Experimental Designs. We will begin with two examples. Two experiments. In the first experiment, participants, that's PPs, are divided into two groups. Each participant is timed completing a jigsaw puzzle. In one group, the participants complete their puzzle on their own, and in the other group, the participants all complete the puzzle in the same room. The times are just then compared. In another experiment, we are also looking at timing and puzzles. However, the structure is a little different. A group of participants is recruited. Each participant is timed completing two jigsaw puzzles. First, they complete a puzzle on their own, and then they complete another puzzle whilst all in the same room. In today's session, you will learn about experimental designs, independent groups, repeated measure, and match pairs designs. We will need to have notes on all three. We will also be able to identify and distinguish between the three types of designs we learn about. And we will understand what goes into designing an experiment, some strengths and weaknesses of each design, and why we may choose one over another. So let's begin. I will give you a minute to make sure that you have a heading for each of these experimental designs. What is an experimental design? An experiment must have two or more conditions, but those conditions can be arranged in a number of ways. These are the three ways: independent groups, repeated measures, or matched participants. We will use those two examples of the jigsaw puzzle while we look at each of these different types of designs. We will start with independent groups. In an independent groups design, we recruit a group of participants. Here they are. We then divide them into two groups. So in our example of the puzzles, we will be recruiting a group of participants, and we will then put them into two groups. One group, the participants will complete the puzzle on their own. The other group, the participants will all complete the puzzle in the same room. This group does the experimental task with the IV set for condition 1. IV being puzzle on their own. IV2 being puzzle in the same room. We then measure the DV for each group. In the experiment and example of the jigsaw puzzles, the DV is the time taken to complete the puzzle. Then our researcher comes and he collects the data from the first group and collects the data from the second group and then compares the two. That is an independent groups design. I'll give you a moment to copy it down. It may be easier for you to actually copy it in a flowchart form, like the one you see, or you may prefer just to write dot points. Moving along to repeated measures design. This is the example where a group of participants is recruited. And then each participant is timed completing 2 jigsaw puzzles. Here are our participants. First, all of the participants will complete a puzzle on their own. Off they go to complete the puzzle. They are timed. The researcher collects the data, how long it took them to complete the puzzle on their own. Then all of the participants will complete the puzzle whilst in the same room. Then the researcher will collect the data. The researcher will then go away and compare the results for condition 1 and condition 2 to see whether the participants were better or worse, i.e., were they quicker or slower when they were on their own doing a puzzle or when they were all together in the same room. Now let's have a look at matched participants design. A matched participants design is much like an independent measures design. We recruit a group of participants. Here they are. Notice they're all in different colours this time. That's important. Not the colours, but that they're all different. We split the group in half, but we don't do this randomly like we did in an independent measures design. Instead, it's a systematic splitting. What does this mean? Well, maybe in our example of the puzzles, we're looking at IQ as well, and we want to control for IQ. So we don't want some participants to have higher IQ or lower IQ, or even if they do, we want both groups to have an even spread of IQ. So maybe the girl in the red has a very high IQ, and the girl in the grey has a low, and the green and yellow both have 2 different medium level IQs. We will then want to find for our other group another person with exactly the same IQ as the girl in the red, exactly the same IQ as the girl in the green, exactly the same IQ as the girl in the yellow, and exactly the same IQ as the low level IQ in the grey. As you can see, we're matching here in our example for IQ. But this can be for anything: gender, age, race. But like we said before, we treat the experiment as an independent measures. We then have condition 1, which is completing the puzzle on their own, and condition 2, completing the puzzle in the same room. We compare the results for matched pairs. If you're unsure of the process, go back to independent measures design, where I spoke about it in a little bit more length. Or have a look in your textbook. Or write down a question and I will answer it for you tomorrow.